Sup guys, back again with part 5 of my Imperial Guard breakdown for the new Astra Militarum. This video is going to be looking at the fast attack options you've got playing with the new Guard Codex. There's only 6 options in here, so this will be a short video, so I'll get started. First up is your Scout Sentinel Squadrons. I like them. You don't see many people running the Sentinels, generally, because I think they have got cheaper. I think they've gone from 40 to 35 points, so it isn't a huge difference. But when you start looking out with what they come with and what you can upgrade them to, they come basically with a multi-laser for the 35 points, and it's armor 10 all round BS3. You can take up to an additional 2, so you can run a squadron of 3. You've got the options that they had before, so you can take a heavy flamer for free, which would be useful for clearing out enemy units and cover infantry that can't really deal with walkers. Auto cannons are always a good choice because you get 6 shots a turn at strength 7, so that's light vehicles, and you could think of shooting at flyers, maybe, and that's 5 points a model, so they're up to 40 points. So what they were, I think that's a loadout I'd consider. You've got your missile launcher. It's versatile with having the crack and frag missiles, but with BS3 you're struggling unless you're starting to. It's one of those things where now that we've got prescience with your psychers, you wanted to run it with everything. Everything would benefit from prescience in the guard, because ballistic skill 3, though it is good, it's better than it looks. It isn't reliable. It's the middle ground. It's 50-50. So prescience would. It's one of those things. If you've got them, you could consider sticking a prescient psyker with them, and boosting it, maybe sticking on the auto cannons, and that starts increasing just how many hits you get in, increasing your chance of hitting flyers. The last option for 10 points is las cannons. It is an idea. I think someone said for 1,500 points roughly, a guard army could have 37 las cannons in it. I can't think of many armies which would do well still facing 37 las cannons. Vehicle lists would struggle, heavy infantry lists would struggle, horde lists would struggle because they're still going up against masked guardsmen around the las cannons. And 37 las cannon shots a turn, that starts scaring hordes just through weight of fire. So that's the last option. Your next option is the Armoured Sentinel, which is the one I'd probably consider taking. The special rules for the normal Sentinels, the Scout Sentinels, is move through cover and scout. So you get to make your 6-inch move, and you are better going through cover. Those would be the ones if you wanted to press them forward for contesting objectives. Armoured Sentinels is the ones you'd have if you wanted them supporting your line, because they've got front armor 12, which is decent. It's the same as a Dreadnought, so running a squadron of 3 of these is a strong choice because it's more survivable, give them some camo netting maybe, taking up to 55 points a man. But again, for 60 points you could give them heavy armor, the camo netting, and auto cannons for 3 of them for 60 points, so 180 points for 3 of them. That's starting to work similar to the rifleman dreadnoughts you see running with the twin-linked auto cannons, because that's 3 auto cannons. You could get prescience on them with your sidekick. I think that's a unit of. It's one of those things. There's quite a few units that, with changes and with certain the way points have been fiddled about with different options in the Force Org. There's units which I didn't consider last Codex, which I'm wanting to test. So it's the Bulgrins from the Elites, and for fast attack, I think it's going to be the Armoured Sentinels. I wouldn't run loads of them. I wouldn't spam out 9 of them, but I think a unit of 3 would be reasonably useful as a support unit. You've got the same options as the Scout Sentinels, so missile launchers, heavy flamers, auto cannons, las cannon. The difference is they can take a plasma cannon. It's 10 points, so it is a reasonably cheap plasma cannon, 50 points a model. I don't think a plasma cannon, unless you know you're going up against Terminators at deep strike, so Deathwing, maybe Chaos, Grey Knight, then I'd run them. Other than that, I think I'd stick with autocannons just for sheer weight of fire and the versatility from an autocannon. It's just the fact that you can. They've only got 2 hull points, so if you started losing a couple with overheats, they're starting to make them slightly more flimsy. So, and it's also 5 points cheaper. So I don't know. Again, it'd be test them out, see how they do. Next up is the Rough Riders, which I do believe got cheaper. I think they were 13 points to now 11. The Sergeant could take a plasma pistol or a power weapon for 15 points. You can get a melt bomb on the Sergeant. You can buy 2 special weapons for a squad. It's one of those things. They come basically as a 5-man squad for 55 points, which is a Sergeant and 4 basic Rough Riders, and you can take up to another 5 for a 10-man squad. For 110 points, basic. It's not a combat unit you'd be. Once they're in combat, you can start pushing them on. They are the counterattack unit. I don't know if you'd run them. 110 points isn't too bad. So if you held them back, hid them behind some vehicles, and then someone got too close, on the charge they do get, I think it's +2 strength and it's power weapon. I'll double check that. Ranged weapons. Melee weapons, hunting lance. +2 strength, strength 3, specialist weapon, 1 use only. So you'd only be able to get 1 charge out of them before they would be. The job would be done. But if that's fending off, what initiative are they? They're only initiative 3. You'd have to see. It's one of those things. It would have been nice if the hunting lance gave you maybe +2 initiative as well. So you're going in with initiative 5. That's if a blob of Chaos Marines were running at you and you sent them out for them. 10 of them would be able to do quite a lot of damage, and then it wouldn't matter if they died because the job would be done. I'm trying to think if any psychic powers can buff initiative or knock down enemy initiative. Can't think of Eldar at the moment. Again, it's a unit I really like the idea of, but tactically, it's as I said, being initiative 3, they struggle because stuff's going before them. They're only toughness 3. They've only got a 5 up armor. They are cavalry, so they are reasonably fast. It's one of those things where you'd have to test them out. I don't think you'd be wanting to throw. I would say, oh, it's power weapon, so you could throw them at Marines. But a Marine squad with Overwatch, knocking out, if they're lucky, maybe 1 or 2 of them, then striking first at strength 4, you're starting to whittle them down to only like a 5-man squad, and then they get the hits. And at that point, they aren't doing anywhere near as much damage as they could do. I'm not sure. I'd like to see them useful, but I think they needed an initiative boost. Even if it was just 1, if it was the hunting lance was +2 strength, AP3, +2 initiative for a bit like the Halberds for Grey Knights for the +2 initiative. And again, keep it as 1 use only, so you're only getting 1 charge out of them. They'd be really fierce. You'd see them being used because they'd be a good counterattack unit. At the moment, it's a combat unit that's initiative 3 and toughness 3 and 5 up save, so they're going to get squashed. So maybe not. It'd be something you'd have to run. Maybe against another guard, it'd be reasonably efficient. Get 1 good charge out of them against a guard blob. 20 attacks, then hitting on 4s. I don't know. You'd have to test them. Next up is the Hellhound Squadrons, which they've got the 3 variations of the Hellhound. You've got the Hellhound, the Devil Dog, and the Bane Wolf. Each one has different strengths. The Hellhound has its Inferno Cannon, which is called, where you can put it out 12 inches and then put the, like, you measure out 12 inches and then the flamer template. Torrent. So that's useful because you don't have to get as close, getting into combat range if you're flaming, so it's good against orcs. They're based on a chimera, so 12, 12, 10, so reliable armor. It isn't fierce, but it's reliable. You can allow them to be taking some damage, some pop shots on the front and side before you have to start worrying. Your enemies have to be sending dedicated tank hunters to be guaranteeing killing them. You can glance them to death with different things, with rending and stuff, but any vehicle struggles from that. So the Devil Dog is the next option. That one comes with the melter cannon, which is the 18-inch blast, I believe. Melter. 24-inch range, strength 8, AP1, heavy 1, blast melter. So if you're in 12 inches, it's double pen. You could start trying to be catching 2 vehicles with it. It's one of those things where, again, I never played them, and I'm tempted to. Because that would, Devil Dogs in particular, would be some reasonably fierce anti-armor. Take 3 of them, because they're only 135 points, so 405 points. Don't give them any upgrades. Just, if there's an enemy Land Raider rolling up, rush them forward, Suicide Squad for the big scary tank or squads of heavy infantry and stuff. Keep the enemy distracted. If they're focused on them, they're not focusing on, let's say, the battle tanks in forming your line. It could work as supporting armoured squads, I think. The last one is the Bane Wolf. It has the Chem Cannon, which is Poison 2 up AP3, so it's decent against Space Marines, but the problem is it's only the length of the flamer, so it's 8 inches. So that means you are literally having to get right up in their face to be using it. And that, for 130 points, that isn't the position I want to be. Unless if you, let's say you said run 2 of them in a squadron, and drove them up together, kept them in cover, got some camo netting on them to keep it, so you can be moving through covers and getting boosting your cover save. It'd be useful for flushing off objectives, but it's getting too close. At that point, it's easy just to take Wyverns, which is the new artillery piece, which I'll cover in the next video. So for the Hellhound squadrons, Hellhounds I like the look of because they're good against hordes, and I really want to see what 3 Devil Dogs would do. Even if you didn't take any of the fast attack, just ran 3 of them separate. See how they did just going against, like, flanking out around an armoured list and aiming for the main area resistances for your tanks. That'd be an interesting idea. Next up is the Valkyrie Squadron. They've got cheaper. I think they were 130. They're now 100. No, they were 120 points. They're now 125. I think. You can take up to 3 of them still as a squadron. They've got a capacity of 12 for troops, so you can still run your stormtroopers, your veterans, platoons if you really wanted to. I think veterans and the stormtroopers are the best choice for them. They come basic with a multi-laser and 2 Hellstrike missiles, which is strength 8 AP3 missile, 1 use only. You can replace the multi-laser with a last cannon, so that can start hunting tanks. You can replace the Hellstrike missiles with 2 multiple rocket pods, which are the strength 4 AP6 large blast, heavy 1. So that's reasonably good at starting to help clear up, blast off vehicles, blobs of guys. And then you can take the pair of sponts and heavy bolters for 20 points. I take into account the heavy bolters just for the sheer fact, if you're starting to take hits and you're losing weapons, you're losing the weapons you want, which would be the missile pods and the las cannons. It's 20 points for insurance on those weapons. But with only 3 hull points, if they're taking off weapons, you're going to start taking more and more hits. So I don't know. It's an idea. It might be an idea to keep them cheap. What was it? 135 points to upgrade them with the missile pods and the multi-laser. Multi-lasers are good. The strength 6, so you can start hunting light vehicles. The blasts are good for clearing objectives for your veterans to drop on. So yeah, I think that's how I'd run them. 135 points, given the missile pods. Blast them across turn 2, hopefully, if you've got your Master of the Fleet for reserves. Get them across the board. You keep them in the air, bombarding objectives, and then late game, dropping out maybe a bare bones veteran squad to capture it. So the whole Valkyrie spam still works. Of the two out of the Valkyries and Vendetta, the Valkyries took the less of a hit from the nerf hammer. With the points increase, it hasn't drastically affected the list. So you can, I think the people who are running 9 Vendettas may contemplate snapping off las cannons and replacing with missile pods so you can get Valkyries, because Valkyries are just as effective. It's just you can't rely on them for as many anti-tank. Maybe I think I consider now if you're going to run the 9, 2 squadrons of 3 Valkyries and 1 squadron of 3 Vendettas instead of all Vendettas. Right, last up, speaking of Vendettas, is the Vendetta squadron. These took a pretty high increase in points. They've gone up from 130 to 170. But I think I mentioned it in my initial reactions video where they had it coming. When the Guard were released, they were seen as a skimmer with 3 twin-link las cannons. For 130 points, that was reasonably expensive for what it was, and he was likely to get killed. As soon as they put him into 6th, and they got upgraded to a flyer, they went from no one taking them to everyone taking them because they were the best flyer. Crimson Hunters struggled. They'll still struggle just because the fact you can have a squadron of 3 of them, 40 points. Generally, if you were running a Vendetta list with veterans, the points you now save on your veterans, your HQs, your armour, outweigh how much you're increasing the cost of your Valkyrie. So I think it balances out. People are saying, oh, Vendettas aren't worth taking much anymore. If anything, they're worth just as much. It's just how your points have been divided between your army. You've just shuffled them around a bit. So I don't think generally many lists will change your Vendetta spam, because the points you saved get put back into your into your Vendettas. They're still as useful as they were. 3 twin las cannons is fierce. Run a squadron of 2 or 3 of them. No flyer is going to be wanting to be in the same board as them, because the las cannons are reaching across the board. The sniper, you can take out flyers, you can take out tanks. Maybe think giving them the heavy bolter sponsons again as insurance for not losing las cannons, and they start strafing objectives. The other change was the transport capacity. It's now down to 6, so that means you can't do your full squads of Vendettas, veterans in them. You could think about special weapon squads dropping out with 3 special weapons, or the Tempesta scheme. You could take a command squad and 2 squads of 5, or 2 squads of 6, sorry. Stick them in the 3 Vendettas. That would be quite scary, dropping out with hotshot volley guns. An idea. So that was your 6 choices for your fast attacks. Quick skim over Scout Sentinels if you're wanting to push across the board. I want to test Armoured Sentinels as helping hold the line. Stick them in amongst your squads with 3 autocannons would be quite interesting to see if it worked. Rough Riders, they needed a boost to initiative. I think it'll be the same as last edition where you won't see them. It would have been nice if they were worth taking, but there's nothing I can think of you want them in combat with. You're starting to go up against Necrons and been saying, I think I've got a chance, and that isn't reliable. Hellhound squadrons, Hellhounds are worth taking still. Devil Dogs, I want to see how they roll. Bane Wolves are just too short range, you're having to get too close before you can start doing anything. Valkyrie squadrons are still the same, still great flyers, still worth every point. Vendettas, again, dropping transport capacity means you aren't going to be running veterans in them. and the increase in points, but that balances out with the drop in points for everything else. So yeah, still worth it. I'm still running one. I'm going to run it with my armoured list. Is air superiority, keeping flyers off my back, aiming for like enemy tanks that are going to be threatening my Lehman Rosses. So worth looking at. That's everything. So I will see you in the next one for probably the last video for the heavy sports. Comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.